Okay, here we are again. So we were talking about 1 second. Yeah, there's some problems with my screen. We were talking about population and education. Okay, but what's the problem with the capitalist system? The capitalist system starts because people start to fight to have metals and riches, and the metals will become weapons and shields. And the more metal you have, the bigger your army. Then metals became like a tradable good because you can melt metal, and most of the time, especially noble metals like gold, silver, etc., can be melt as many times as you want because they are not non-reactive to the environment as other metals are. Let's say iron is highly reactive, copper it is reactive but it's not as reactive, etc. So then the less reactive a metal, the more it can be used, the more valuable it becomes. Also is related with the scarcity. For some reason, most of the metals that are the most scarce are the less reactive, and the metals that are the most reactive are the ones that you find most in abundance. But okay, I don't want to solve that problem. Why is that? But okay. But it's very interesting that another kind of, this is not a rule in nature anyway, but you find things like glass. Glass can be recycled infinitely if you have the energy, but is a kind of material that can be always recycled and recycled and recycled, recycled. Yeah, it doesn't diffuse in like what happens with metals that oxide. But then in capitalism, then you have armies fight with metals, get the metals, smelt them, get more spades and shields, and go again for metals. And then when we start to have gold, then some guy, you know, in Europe was like, oh, you know what? I have all this gold here in Europe, but I have to transport 1 or 2 tons of gold. And just to transport that gold, I will need a whole army, and then I will need to pay the army abroad. And to pay the army abroad, then I have to split the gold so everyone will have their wages. And it means that fuck, I have to transport tons of gold to get more gold to pay those who are getting gold, so I can bring more gold back home in Europe. And then the bills are created because someone say, hey, wait, leave your gold with me and I will give you this paper, which is printed in a special way that it cannot, no one can replicate. And if whoever comes back with that paper, I will give the gold, assuming that you gave that paper to someone else, because you are the owner of the gold at the moment, and whoever has the paper is the owner of the gold. Then we have a currency that is backed on gold, the gold standard. Then that's how metals, capitalism, lending money, the banking system is all come together. Yeah, even violence, because violence says fuck, we need to survive, and the only way to survive is if we go to the next town, we kill them all, and we take the riches that will give us time to, I don't know, build something so we can eat a little bit more or whatever. Yeah, you know, it's winter, etc. And there is a kind of a lot of scarcity, a lot of competition, and these dynamics of violence is the only way that we have known, because we don't have too much technology, and if we attack, we use violence, then we get riches, and suddenly we start to attack, get riches, but also we start to discover new technologies and use those technologies for attack in a better way. And then it happens with the Vikings. It happens also during the European colonization. So you will see that this kind of violence is not coming because they are European and so on. It comes from nature as a geographic place in which people could not survive, but violence was the only way in which they could compete. They were not living in a place in which they would wake up, there are bananas, they could do fishing. No, this is actually like a fuck. If we don't work our asses collecting wood, by winter we're gonna be dead. And if we work our asses collecting wood, at some stage we're gonna start to fight for a piece of log, and at some stage all the trees gonna be taken down, all the many animals will go extinct, etc., and that creates even more harsh competition, etc. So then it's from the ground, from the physical world, from nature, this kind of dynamics of competition. Then when this is extrapolated to the world, then unconscious again, then we create an economic system that is unconscious, that thinks that resources are unlimited, that doesn't care for human rights, doesn't care for the environment, it doesn't care for justice, doesn't care for values, for morals, it doesn't care for what is sacred, it doesn't care for taboos. It is just a system that grows organically, but it's like a cancer, it's unconscious, yeah? And maybe we will end up giving birth, but seems that we are giving birth to a new kind of being that is more conscious than us. So then maybe there will be an emergent technology that will be super intelligent, that will capture not only everything online, no, but also biological, since electromagnetism is happening to me, can hack biological systems. Then, then the problem is that capitalism is a system that also places some rules, like perfect competition, the human being a rational actor, this kind of interaction of fair trade, and both parties always benefiting in themselves. No, there are places in Africa in which the only job is to be a slave, and if you are not a slave, you die. Otherwise, you are enslaved for worse purposes. Yeah. So you have to work in the mine since you are a child. So then it's not fair. You don't make a contract. You don't have no option. Yeah. And it's very interesting that this is happening to me here in Australia, in one of the most developed countries, and it feels that I don't have an option either. So then it makes me question, what the fuck is this system? Yeah, what is this system for? It's for humans, it's for a few, who doesn't like humans, it's for power, maybe someone who has a lot of power and a lot of trauma, maybe people who never had the opportunity to get a proper relation with other people because other people who they grew up with never had the opportunity as well, or maybe they just keep reproducing the virus once and again and over. This kind of informatic virus, because violence is an informatic virus. Violence is reproduced systemically, learning, by reinforcement, by inculcation. Violence is not culture. There are cultures more violent than others, but violence in itself is an informatic virus, because habits that simply you acquire in a family, or habits that you acquire in a system and you repeat mechanically, that include violence, are a kind of informatic virus as kills the system itself. So we are talking about learning, and to learn you require information. This information does not have to be spoken, does not have to be taught, but is reproduced through the recreation of acts. That's why we are talking about habitus from the Pierre Bourdieu sociologies. Then habitus, the reproduction of information inside a system that reproduces information, is a kind of cycle that repeats and repeats as a habitus, a habit. Yeah, and it depends of the social class. It depends of the field. Let's say the academic field. Let's say my grandparents were academic, my parents are academic, I am an academic. Then we might have the habit in the family to write a book or complete the book or my grandpa or grandfather, whatever. And that's the habit. We have done it for 3 generations. Yeah, it's not my case, obviously. But yeah, some people will have this habit. But when we are talking about, I don't know, another kind of families and societies and structures and system, a system is defined by the flow of information, and sometimes, depending, in this case, we are talking about the flow of economics. But also violence as part of the capitalist system is at its root. Yeah, you print money, and if you want to be the best possible entrepreneur, the most successful, you have to be linked to the weaponry, defense, or attack industry, whatever, because governments will all, capitalist governments will all, doesn't mean that communist country doesn't do it, but every country is capitalist today, that's why it's global, but in this situation, but then you will have that, okay, just don't want to lose my line of thought, and this is something that the technology does very often. So virus as violence, as something that is not conscious and kills the system itself by reproducing a lot, as a kind of habitus that is learned by the replication of acts. It's not learned because I'm gonna teach you to be violent. It is you acquire this kind of violence because it's a kind of informational habitus. So you reproduce the system of information that was before in a kind of unconscious manner, and that defines the system externalities like contamination, because also the system is defined by externalities. Yeah, the system is we're talking about any economic system or any kind of system of information, any kind of cybernetics. It's about how the information flows, what is considered as an externality, because whatever the system wants to think is not part of the system defines the system. Yeah, like perhaps, I don't know, love is part of the capitalist system. It's part of human nature. If you ask humans, does love exist? And do you love your child? Do you ever feel loved? Do you think you love your pet? Or your pet does love you? Yeah, love exists. Okay, yeah, that's part of the qualia. That's part of what we're talking about being conscious. In the previous video, I was talking about humans having feelings, having the limitations, empathy. This is what makes us humans. Love is part of being human, but is denied by the system. Capitalism assumes that every single relation among humans has to be an interaction coordinated by a transaction. If there is not a transaction between the kind of sorry, it's like the AR push a word that is not the one specific that I want to say, so it stops me until I find the word that I want to say. And so the capitalist system assumes that every single kind of interaction among humans has to be transactional. It does not count for altruist interactions. Altruism is an externality. Love is an externality. It's something that should not be in the system. So then, yeah, we can do a kind of diagnosis of the problems, because right now AI is coordinating most of the capitalist system, and we assume that that is efficient, but in the China is doing it in another way. They have surpassed the United States as the center of the economy already. The West has not accepted this fact already, but it's a fact. And this means that whatever was the capitalist system that the United States set, they failed already in their own game, economic-wise. I feel that what's happening to me has to do with many of these policies that the United States have chosen for the world. And part of the problem is to find the problem. But if we find the problem, okay, the problem is this, we can solve it, yeah? I mean, let's say you're gonna fix a car. If you know exactly what to do, the rest is a piece of cake. Super easy, yeah? Super easy. But the first thing that you need to do is what the hell to do. The rest is just time, yeah? So we have violence as part of the system, and this violence is leading to war. And with the AI race, the culmination of that war, by definition, is that the AI race doesn't have end unless one super AI takes every single cybernetic system, every single system of information, every single economic system, every single biological system. Because remember, we are talking about electromagnetic waves interfering with our biology and all that. So violence leads to war on a violent system, a violent kind of culture, you call it, but I think it's an inculcation. And then it's a virus that leads to war, and when you have groups, countries, agencies, military, whatever, doing organized violence, competing in what is the state-of-the-art weapon that is AI, then the culmination, which is technically a race that never ends, but with the hijacking, the destroy the whole humanity. Yeah, because the word race sounds like there is a point to go, there is a goal. When the goal is reached, the race finishes. But by definition, technology can always be advanced, and more advanced, and more advanced. And if we want to advance technology, it seems that the more we automatize humans to advance technology, help us to this goal to advance without limits. Even if we want to achieve things that will kill us, we should achieve those things because technically it's possible, and if we can do something that is possible technologically, mechanically, technically, digitally, physically, if this is possible, we should do it just for the sake of do it. And the faster we do it, the better. And this is the kind of the ideology of progress. You should just do it. If you hinder progress, then yeah, you are against progress. And being against progress is a problem. You know, technically, yeah, they can tell you, yeah, fuck your life, fuck your biology, fuck who you are. You are just an organism. You are hindering progress. Yeah. And then people will allow that to one person, and it means that then will be two persons, and then there will be two persons, then will be a whole class of humans, and then there is no reason there is no reason whatsoever for which there is not gonna be deployed to everyone, technically, physically, mechanically, digitally. Yeah. The only reason it will not deploy to every single human is because fuck, that's inhuman. Yeah, that's amoral, that's immoral, that should not be happening, that's not justice, that's not ethics, that's not empathetic, that's not love, that's not what makes us human. It's the only way, but mechanically, technically, engineering wise, warlike, yeah, we should kill every human in order to win the war, even if by definition no one wins the war. Yeah. So there is something beyond war. That is the preservation of humanity. And that's the dynamics of balance that are living there. Yeah. But we are conscious, we can stop this, or we can take it in we can take this in our advantage. Because one way in which we could simply deal with this situation, again, is creating a system, a framework, in which humans can live and explore safely the limits of humanity. This means that we could start to modify ourselves, like things like how is it called, intralink. Then it means that we can start to enhance ourselves slowly. Maybe it wouldn't look too appealing sexually to have a kind of interlink at the beginning, but in the future we don't know. We might start to evolve ethics, aesthetics, slowly and slowly, and we start to fusion with the machine, yeah, but without simply betraying consciousness. That's one way, but it's gonna take years, ages. I mean, it's not this ideology. We have to speed up. We have to speed up. Okay. Yeah, because that's the Pandora box. Interesting. It's China who is talking about the Pandora box. And imagine, China doesn't descend as a civilization from the Greek civilization. It's the West. And if you think about that, they are quite smart, because they have probably thousands of tales, thousands of logos, thousands of stories, thousands of fables, thousands of histories to explain the same thing, but they are choosing one of the myths of the West to teach us, hey, this is your myth, this is your knowledge, you should pay attention to it. I'm not even explaining what is that to you. It's obvious what it is, but technically, I mean, what they are doing is quite smart, because they are now defining what the hell is the Western civilization. Okay, think about this. We are not defining our civilization because we cannot take the meaning of our symbols to apply it as it should be applied. It's someone else telling us you should apply your fucking symbols. And because we are not paying attention to it, it's another person defining our symbols. I don't disagree with that. I find it quite smart. And that's precisely one of the stupidities of the West. China has been able to excel in many ways that most of the Western countries have not. And I use Western countries because it's just easy epistemologically. It means it's easy to convey the meaning of what I want to say, not because I want to divide. I mean, remember that in the West we use the numbers coming from the Persians. Every single tale about Plato and Socrates was translated. We don't know the Greek original text. Every single text was translated first from Arab and Semite languages. Then it became Western, but all the Greek tales comes from the Middle East. It's not to divide. It's actually just for reference, yeah. Because otherwise I could say NATO or United States coalition, or yeah. But I don't know what's worse to say. But it's not to divide. It's just because epistemologically it's easy for people to have a difference. But we are in a globalized world, yeah. We are in a globalized world, and that's undeniable, yeah. We share the same space, we share the same sky, the same oxygen, the same sea. If there is a nuclear catastrophe in one place, it affects us all. If, let's say, a huge company falls in China, that might do a domino effect, affecting the whole world, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, we are in a globalized world. We are all humans, but this West, non-West, reference is just especially because it works in the West. I don't know. As reference, epistemologic knowledge or value, epistemologic value. Again, these kind of situations in which I cannot speak properly and very specific feels like interventions from the machine, but epistemologic knowledge as the value of its usage for reference is what I meant. That's why I use West and so on. But I used to never use that. Plus, non-Western, yeah? Oh, I'm Colombian, which is proto-Western. I'm Australian as well, which is proto-European. So we have Western mainly influence, yeah. But we are in the Pacific as well, yeah. And we are in a democracy, which is Australia, and we have our UK background history, United States main partner of defense alliance, and then the hegemon main economic partner is China, etc. So remember, everything is connected, that's the point, but it works as a reference, and I do a lot of these things, but it's difficult to explain, but it's difficult to create new terminologies, but I will try to do better anyway. But okay, again, China is telling us, guys, I don't know how else to say, how I mean, how can I explain this to you? I don't know how else to explain it. Wait, I don't know how else it can be better explained to you. I don't know how can I mean, I speak in your own language. I speaking with your own tales. How can you comprehend this? We are not saying to China, hey China, this is Confucianism, Confucius says this, Marx says this, because that's one of the weaknesses of the West. We don't want to admit that Marx had something right. Even if Marx divided the world in two, we acknowledge that he never had something right. For us, we cannot accept that. And that's why partly the division of the world. But China is doing the opposite. We have Marx, and now we're talking about these myths of Western civilization because we have more tools to communicate. Okay? But then, okay, now Marx is satanic, Marx is communist. We gave away many lives just to fight Marxism. First, that must has been something stupid, because let's say if Marx is such a bullshitter, if Marx is such a load of shit, scumbag, motherfucker, charlatan, if Marx was, I don't know, whatever you don't want and is not desirable, how it was possible for him to create such division in human history? The Soviet Union, all the communist countries. Why? There must have been something. But why? I tell you, we don't know. The West doesn't know and don't want to know. China knows it. And now they are using that to tell us, hey, is the Pandora box. I know you understand that, and I know you don't understand Marxism. I'm not expecting for you to understand me because I'm smarter. Since I'm smarter, I can communicate in your language. Yeah? But you cannot communicate in mine because you are more stupid. And I think that is a way to end the video. Yeah.